the thing you learn is you don't really grow a business. You grow people. That one thing the CEO can't delegate and has to take responsibility for is culture. The good ones tell, the great ones ask. And whoever asks the best questions wins. When I'm networking, I'm trying to get something. When I'm net weaving, I'm adding things. It's about two things. It's about culture, which is what you guys specialize in. And it's also about learning and growing. The only person you can change is yourself. Great leaders create other great leaders. And as I aspire to become a greater leader, it's amazing to me how my organization grows because I made the change and then people changed around me. I didn't view failure as failure. I viewed it as a form of market research, but I was just closer to success. Diagnosis without examination is bad practice. It's that way in medicine, it's that way in finance, it's that way in every business. Most people who own a business think they're entrepreneurs, but they really bought themselves a job.
Welcome to the Culture from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. In a business world where employees and customers crave authenticity and trust, hosts Larry Levine and Darrell are on a mission to find and showcase heart-centered executives and the companies they lead. You are about to hear an inspiring conversation with a visionary leader that's bringing heart into the workplace, empowering employees, serving their clients, and uplifting communities, all to create true success. This is Culture from the Heart. The movement starts here. Let's begin.
Welcome to Culture from the Heart. I'm your co-host, Darrell here today with Larry Levine, and we're joined in the studio by Mike Murphy, CEO of Northeast Private Client Group, a boutique financial services industry headquartered in New Jersey. Mark, what's going on? It's great to have you here in the podcast.
I appreciate you guys. By the way, I hope the podcast turns out as well. We had a lot of fun getting ready for the podcast, the three of us. So I hope the podcast is as good as our side conversations before. But well, I'm happy to be here, Darrell. Thank you.
Oh, well, we're going to have a great time. And as we get started, Mark, the question that every guest on the Culture from the Heart podcast answers, and that is, what does it mean to you when you hear the words culture from the heart?
When you're an entrepreneur, you work so hard at building your baby, building your company. The idea starts with an idea and goes. And the thing to me is that what I would like, to me, culture means that I have an organization that not only do I love to show up and work every day, but I have an organization where people want to come to work. They want to make a difference in the lives of the people they touch. They want to do three things every day. They want to help as many people as they can. They want to create as much abundance as they can and wealth for not only for us, but for more importantly for other people. And also have as much fun as we can. If you can't have fun doing it, I'd rather do something else. And to me, I think that's a great culture when you have those folks that want to do those three things: help as many people, create as much abundance, and have as much fun as you can. And quite frankly, that's why I have so much energy doing this almost 40 years, because I'm in creation and fascination mode with people who are aligned with myself.
Now, I was to say, you used the word fascinating. You used the whole word behind fascinating got me interested in going, where did you pick up on this culture and how to develop it through your decades of experience? Because I really keyed in on fascinating, and I just haven't heard that used in the term of how you're using it in developing culture.
Well, I would say this. One is I'm a voracious reader. Two is I like to hang out with smart people like you and Darrell, and where I can get an opportunity to learn. But I think it's also mostly from spending almost 4 years getting my ass kicked, and you ought to figure out at some point by osmosis, you ought to figure out something that works or doesn't work. And I think a lot of it was by trial and error, and just reading and being around smart people and just keep constantly learning. And I think the thing you learn is you don't really grow a business, you grow people. And so the idea is that what one of my pet peeves is when somebody says to me that my payroll is my biggest expense. And I said, well, if people are your biggest expense, let's fire them, because I don't want to have any expenses in the organization. If you're an expense, you should be on the chopping block. I prefer to invest in people and not come at them, but come from underneath them and lift them up and help them create a bigger, better future. And if you do that, that's to me the epitome of great culture, is by growing and investing in your people, and investing not only time, but investing money in them.
What a beautiful perspective. People aren't our biggest expense. They're our biggest and most important investment. Absolutely love that. Mark, you mentioned that reading has been a big part of your journey in this. I'm curious what some of the books are, some of the authors that have influenced you the most when it comes to developing the culture in your organization.
That's like me trying to tell you who my favorite child is, but I love Malcolm Gladwell. I love anything Malcolm Gladwell puts out. I do. It changed our organization when we went to EOS and read Gino Wickman's book Traction. I think we've read. I've anything since as I mentioned, in our private conversation on planes a lot, so I get a lot of downtime to read. Or, in the summer, maybe at the beach. And so I try to consume as many things as I can, not just business books, but also things that allow me that after I've read it to think differently about something than I did before. That ultimately, there are nuggets and things that you take away from, even I remember reading a book about Genghis Khan. And you go, well, what does that have to do with business? But I mean, he was absolutely brilliant. The way, everything from the way he took over, what was at one time considered secure forts and castles, to how he ran culture and society, which was pretty ruthless. And not that any of us want to be ruthless in a modern time, but there's a lot to learn from people like that of not only what to do, but what also not to do.
Darrell and Mark, I got to circle back to Gino Wickman and his book Traction and EOS, because it seems to be a common theme recently on the Culture from the Heart podcast that CEOs and more CEOs are implementing the EOS business model. So I applaud you for that, Mark.
It came out of Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach, which I've been with Dan. Dan's been my coach for decades. And to me, it's like a PhD for entrepreneurs. And I think that ultimately, I've read something that 98% of businesses can't leverage and scale. They never get past the founder. And so ultimately, what I've spent probably the last couple decades on is providing something that provided enterprise value. I don't want to get paid for what I do. I want to get paid for what I know. Most people who own a business think they're entrepreneurs, but they've really bought themselves a job. And, I think that, the golden rule of money is, your money has to work while you sleep. And your business has to produce revenue without you doing the do.
I couldn't agree more. Well, this is a fascinating conversation. And when we come back from the break, I want to take a deeper dive into how culture is affecting the entrepreneurial spirit and the enterprise value of your organization. So let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll rejoin this great conversation with Mark Murphy.
At Culture from the Heart, we believe that leadership starts with putting people first. That's why we've partnered with LearnIt, a trusted name in live learning for over 30 years, to bring you an exciting opportunity. 45 days of free, unlimited training for your team for groups of 5 or more.
This isn't just another training program. It's a chance to build a learning culture where your people feel seen, supported, and empowered. Did you know that 94% of employees are more likely to stay with companies that invest in their development? With LearnIt, you're doing more than offering training. You're showing your team they're at the heart of everything you do.
LearnIt's live, expert-led courses cover essential skills like communication, emotional intelligence, and collaboration. Tools that drive not just retention, but true growth and connection.
Ready to take the next step? Visit learnit.com/culture to claim your 45 days of free training and start creating a culture where your people and your business can thrive.
That's learnit.com/culture. Start leading with purpose and empowering your team today.
You're listening to Culture from the Heart, and we're jumping right back in with our guest, Mark Murphy. Mark, you mentioned before the break that it's really critical that we create enterprise value in our organizations, and you mentioned traction. You mentioned some culture and all of that. How do you see culture in your organization contributing to the enterprise value?
I don't believe in competition. I believe in differentiation. And so one of the examples you would say is in most businesses, people are networking. They're networking. And what I mean networking means I'm trying to do something because I want you to do business with my firm, whether you're a client, a patient, a prospect, whatever you call whatever you call the customers that you have in that place. And so if everybody is networking, why would I want our firm to be networking, be just another one of those people who are networking out there looking for business? I'd much prefer to teach our guys how to be net weavers. And what I mean by that is we always come to the relationship trying to lead with our giving arm, it's almost sort of jarring for those folks because they think, hey, Mark's here maybe to sell something or get something from me. And instead comes with something that will help me grow my business or create a bigger, better future for myself, or to really focus on what I can do to serve and what I can do to make a difference in their lives. And not only is that sometimes jarring to them, but what it really does is it lets them know who you are. It lets them know that you're different. It also lets them know that oftentimes that's the best way, in my opinion, to create transformational relationships rather than transactional relationships. I don't do very well with transactional relationships. I'm not a transactional person. I want to work with people who are big thinkers. I want to work with people who are loyal. I want to work with people who appreciate our expertise, who reciprocate. And so, with the law of attraction, I think that you want to be different. You don't want to take the same path that everybody else does.
Hey, I really like this, and I want to circle back in, if you can, Mark, on this whole net weaving. You've got me really intrigued. So, would you mind sharing some examples of how net weaving's played out inside your firm? Because I'm fascinated by this, because I believe more people should take on this whole philosophy of net weaving as opposed to networking. So, if you could walk us through a couple of examples, that'd be awesome.
I think part of it is before. Remember, the good ones tell, the great ones ask. And whoever asks the best questions wins. And so part of it is, and I steal from the medical profession when I say diagnosis without examination is malpractice. It's that way in medicine, it's that way in finance, it's that way in every business. And I think that the important thing is to really understand your person. And so before you come in, where people are coming in trying to sell their product or service, you want to understand what keeps them up at night, what is important and where you can add value. Like, as an example, I remember, many situations where, that in that discovery process, you found out where their pain points are. And immediately you could come back with an introduction or a simple solution to have them make more money, reduce cost, grow their business. I remember many times where some of our biggest clients have said, hey, you were highly recommended by our attorney or accountant or a mutual friend. But I want to let you know that, as a key business strategist, critical thinker, financial advisor, we've got people we've been with for 25 or 30 years. They've done a really good job and we're loyal to them. But through that process, as an example, you might find out, their largest historic client has not done business with them for years. And you're able to use your network to be able to find out within 48 hours that it was 2 mid-level people in each organization that got into a pissing match, and they took them off the bid list. And within 40 days, you had a $60 million contract, and they were back doing business again. That's an idea of net weaving. Or there was a problem they had. They sat down and said, oh my God, my spouse is all upset because my daughter's on the wait list at so-and-so private high school or so-and-so college. And you're able to say, well, by the way, let me make a phone call on your behalf. I know some folks that certainly could make a phone call on her behalf and try to help her to go do that. Or, it's ultimately, people, when you ask the right questions, they'll tell you what's on their mind. And if you can solve that problem in elegance and excellence, they not only want to do business with you forever, but they want to tell everybody about you, and they become your marketing department by net weaving rather than networking. Remember, Larry, when I'm networking, I'm trying to get something. When I'm net weaving, I'm adding things. And I think some people, it's off-putting this. They think you've added so much value. Like, are you the mafia? Do I owe you something now? No, you don't owe me anything. The idea to me is I didn't do this. I led with my giving arm. And, 9 times out of 10, people, want to be around people that can that can help them. But if somebody doesn't do that, the gift is always in the giving.
Mm-hmm. Love the heart behind that. That's really, really beautiful. And I'm curious, when you think about your company, Northeast Private Client Group, and if I were to walk in and say, hey, what words would you use to describe the culture that you're working to create inside your company, what would you say?
I would say it's people first, family first. It's not only to create an experience, but to create a wow experience for every client. And if you don't wake up totally jazzed about creating an experience for people, you're going to be miserable at our firm. And everybody outside my door is going to hate your guts, Darrell. They're going to hate you. And I also think it's about emotional fitness. Remember, not every conversation goes perfectly. Some people are having a bad day, not only you, but sometimes the people on the other end of the phone. And how do you take maybe a challenging conversation or a problem and look at it as an opportunity where you can get everybody to a better place? And that's a definition of success, to be able to go do that. And I want people to have, my core values. I mean, sometimes, high achievers hate mediocre people. I hate mediocre people, and they probably hate me too. But I don't want. I'd rather have half the people I need who get it, rather than just throwing more bodies at people that don't really believe in what we're doing or not willing to do what's necessary to create a bigger, better future for our clients. And everything has to be what we call a class 3 experience. It's got to be great for our clients first. It's got to be great for my team second, and it's got to be great for me third. That's it. That's an idea of a win.
Oh, love it.
That's so good. I have to key in on something. Is this whole emotional fitness? I've heard fitness used. I've heard emotional used. I haven't heard it used together as a word that would describe culture. At some point, Darrell, we got to unpack this emotional fitness.
Yeah. Well,
I'll give you that. One better, Larry. In my executive committee last week, obviously, all we do, like every other company, is talking about AI, how to use AI. And so somebody in our organization said, well, before we get to AI, we should just start with I. We should try to get some I in our business, before we get to AI. So, but we're being facetious. But so we're trying to get some intelligence in our business before we get the artificial intelligence. So
that's right.
I thought it was kind of humorous.
We need the I in the AI. We also need some emotional fitness. So we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And thank you to all of our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into this idea of emotional fitness. At Culture from the Heart, we know that hiring the right salespeople and leaders for your company is about more than just resumes. It's about finding individuals who have what it takes to succeed. That's why we're excited to offer candidate assessments from Selling from the Heart to help ensure you make great hiring decisions for your sales team.
Based on data from surveys of over 2.2 million sales professionals and sales leaders, these assessments benchmark your candidates against the core skills of top-performing salespeople and leaders. You'll gain unparalleled insight into their potential, uncovering whether they have the mindset, abilities, and behaviors needed to thrive in your organization.
It's not just about filling a role. It's about ensuring that every sales hire aligns with your culture and contributes to your success. Don't leave your next hire to chance.
Visit sellingfromtheheart.net/hiring and discover how candidate assessments can help you build a winning team. Make your next hire with confidence because your business deserves the best.
And we're back with Mark Murphy, CEO of Northeast Private Client Group. Mark, when we left for the break, we were just talking about this concept that really piqued our interest, and that is emotional fitness as a core part of culture. Unpack that for us, if you would.
I would say that everybody has two businesses that are right there. And the first business, when you start a business, they have a business we call cash flow business. And that means when you first start out, you just try to make enough money to pay your bills. And then when you're doing that a little bit, you pay your bills, but then you got to support your lifestyle because you have a mortgage, or you have rent, or you have a car payment, or you got a kid in school, or you got something. And so, the first business is you want people to be able to handle their, let's call it the cash flow business. But then everybody has a second business out there. And that's what we call that. That's the business I wish I had business. That's the life I wish I had business. And you want people to work on that and be the oracle of possibility for people, not only the people that work for you, but the people you work for. where everybody needs someone to believe in them. They need to be able to see people where they are, because it's ridiculous to see somebody through rose-colored glasses or being Pollyannish. But you also want a superpower to be to see people what their highest potential is and where they can be. And when you're talking about the war for talent and you're talking about culture and emotional fitnesses, you don't have to pay the most. You have to pay competitively. But I will tell you that if I'll come to work for you for $1, it means if somebody offers me $1 more, I'll come to work for them. I'm a mercenary. I'm transactional. So you got to pay competitively. But people think it's about money. It's not about money. If it's about money, you got the wrong model. I think it's about two things. It's about culture, which is what you guys specialize in. And we talk a little bit about that. But it's also about learning and growing. People don't, if you have a great culture and people are learning and growing, they don't leave. And so one of the things we try to do in our organization is in the first 2 years, I want you to get really great at what you do. But after that first 2 years, I want our people to start to mentor the newbies. Because one, it helps the newbies. But two, if you want to learn a subject at a really deep level, the best way to do it is teach it to somebody else. And then after you're with our organization for 4, 5, 6 years, I want everybody, especially our leaders, to be a subject matter expert for something so they own something in the firm. And part of that thing is for me as the CEO to make sure that I don't let people get stale by being able to do the same thing all the time. They get really good at what they do, but to be able to add nuances, add responsibilities, take them in a different direction so that they're excited and challenged about the ability to learn and grow and not do their job and not get stale. And then I think the one thing that the CEO can't do is I can delegate. I try to delegate everything I can. In fact, I would have delegated this podcast if I could. Not really, but but I'm saying, I would say that the one thing the CEO can't delegate and has to take responsibility for is culture. And I think too many CEOs, and maybe myself as a younger version of me, would say, hey, the problem in the organization isn't me. It's all these other people who won't listen or don't get it or aren't there. And ultimately, I view it much like what people think of marriage counseling. Like most people go into marriage counseling and say, I need a third party to tell you that you're wrong and I'm right. And both parties are thinking the same thing. That's why they're in marriage counseling most of the time. And I think it's the same thing there. And when you go to marriage counseling, what you realize is the only person you can change is yourself. The only person you can change is you can start showing up the right way, not some of the time, but all the time. And you find that what my aspiration to be is the better leader I can become. Remember, good leaders create followers, great leaders create other great leaders. And as I aspire to become a greater leader, it's amazing to me how my organization grows because I made the change and then people changed around me. And the ones that changed are rewarded. And maybe some of those other folks either self-selected out or maybe we help them find a better place for them other than our firm because they didn't get it. When you have people that are passively or aggressively defying your culture, even if they're very, very talented at their job, you have to let them go because they are a cancer in the organization. And it's sometimes you're letting good people go sometimes who are very good at their job. Maybe they're great business developers or they've got some unique skill set, but you have to let them go or you have to plan to let them go when you can replace them because they'll smash your culture. How can I hold people accountable if I can't hold my leaders accountable? And it starts with me being accountable.
Well, this is so good. I was just curious. I'm fascinated by this conversation. Who was, if you had to look back in all your years, who had the biggest influence on you that's helped you in developing your culture? I'm just curious.
Dan Sullivan, clearly a strategic coach. I also as I said, I'm a consumer for all kinds of relationships. Like when I was in my very early 30s, I formed a joint venture when accounting firms started to get licensed through financial services 30 years ago. And I met a guy named Harris Rothstein, and I saw him take an accounting firm that was basically nothing into a global accounting firm. And I just watched the way he led. I watched every single person. I watched everybody that I thought was doing the right thing, and I just went to school on. And then I asked questions. I built relationships, and I just learned, and I just kept learning. And I learned what worked and what didn't work. And what I realized is that you either had success or learning. And I didn't view failure as failure. I viewed it as a form of market research, that I was just closer to success. And had I not done 2 or 3 things that failed, I wouldn't have done other things that helped make us tens of millions of dollars.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your heart with us today. This has been a really great conversation, and you're a true inspiration. Thanks for being a champion of culture from the heart.
It's my pleasure, guys. You guys do a great job. Thank you for having me out.
Awesome.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
What a great conversation, and so many powerful concepts in all of this. I want to key in on the concept, though, of net weaving and having that heart of service. I love the way Mark contrasted networking with net weaving and saying, what can I do to really be a servant and be helpful? And how that, from a leader, works its way through an organization. I see the profound impact that can have on culture.
It goes back to 2 T words that were used in our time together that really hones in on networking and net weaving, is we can translate networking into transactional. We can then take net weaving and turn that into transformation. Great conversation, Darrell.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to Mark. Thank you to everybody who's listening in, especially those of you who are leaving reviews on the podcast, on the platform on which you listen, and sharing this. We are on a mission to find the heart-centered leaders of the world's best companies. And so if you know a CEO that fits that bill, we'd love to talk to them. Just go to culturefromtheheart.com and nominate your CEO. We believe that culture is the heartbeat of every organization. And as Mark has reminded us, it's about net weaving, having a heart of service, and putting our culture first. So thank you for joining us today on Culture from the Heart. Until next time, lead with your heart and watch your culture thrive.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover heart-centered leaders shaping extraordinary company cultures. To access a leader guide with notes from this week's episode, simply click the link in the show notes or visit us at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Do you know a CEO who's built a culture from the heart? We'd love to hear their story. Head over to www.culturefromtheheart.com and click the Nominate Your CEO button. Until next time, remember, great cultures start with the heart.